Marshes, swamps, and bogs. What's in a name? Asked Shakespeare. A rose by any other name would smell as sweet. A swamp by any other name, however, is simply not a swamp. There are many kinds of wetlands, and each goes by a different name. Some are saltwater, some are freshwater, some are fed by the ocean, some by rivers or lakes, and some only by rainfall or snowmelt. The three basic types, marshes, swamps, and bogs, are characterized by different types of vegetation. Marshes consist mainly of grasses. Swamps have trees and bushes. Bogs are dominated by sphagnum moss. Put on your hip waders and join Kid Discovery for a whirlwind tour of different kinds of wetlands. Saltwater, or tidal marsh. Twice a day, saltwater marshes are flooded at high tide, so the plants in them must be able to survive in salt water. Saltgrass, for example, has cells that absorb salt from the water. Then the salt is released through openings on the bottoms of the leaves. Freshwater marsh. Some freshwater marshes are found near rivers. Plants such as cattails, sedges, and rushes stand in the water with their heads held high. Aquatic plants like water lilies live at or below the surface. They may send their leaves to the water's surface to trap sunlight. Algae, the simplest kind of green plant, may cover the surface of a freshwater marsh with a green scum. Freshwater swamp. Like freshwater marshes, many freshwater swamps are found alongside rivers. They usually fill up with water after big storms. In spring, when the snows melt, that runoff might feed a freshwater swamp too. Okefenokee Swamp in Georgia and Florida is a typical freshwater swamp. It is full of bald cypress trees. Saltwater swamp. Mangrove trees are important in most tropical saltwater swamps. The roots of black mangroves grow above the swamp's muddy surface. That lets the tree take in the oxygen it needs. Red mangroves grow prop roots that hold up the tree in the swamp's slime when the tide is out. Here's a look under the ground at an Illinois bald cypress swamp. Harmful fertilizers flow in with runoff from nearby fields. Good thing these tiny duckweed plants can filter them out. Bog. The only way a bog gets water is from rain or snow. No water flows into or out of a bog, so there is little dissolved oxygen in the water. The sphagnum mosses that can live in this environment make the water acidic, which makes it hard for bacteria to live there. In these conditions, dead plants in a bog don't break down and decompose. Instead, they build up over the years and form peat. This can be cut out of the bog and dried. Then it can be burned for fuel. This is a prairie pothole, and this is an estuary. I'm going to give you the login information so you can go on Kids Discovery and you can read about these on your own. We really only want to focus on swamps, bogs, and marshes. So if you notice the diagrams to the left of a marsh, a swamp, and a bog, a marsh and a swamp seem to be part of another body of water, and the bog seems to be on its own, only receiving water from rain or snowmelt. Saving the wetlands. Over the years, wetlands have gotten a bad rap. Think of these sayings: swamped with work, bogged down in details. Even the boogeyman may have come from the bogs of Europe. But words aren't the worst part. The common view of wetlands is much worse. People saw them as mosquito-infested, disease-ridden, worthless pieces of half land, half water. For a long time, most people thought the best thing you could do with a wetland was drain it and plant crops, or drain it and pave it, or drain it and build on it. It's believed that human activity has destroyed over half of the original wetlands in the lower 48 states of the U.S., excluding Alaska and Hawaii. Only within the last 30 years have people begun to understand how important wetlands are to the ecology of the world. But battles are still being fought. Some want to preserve and restore the wetlands, but others think that this approach stands in the way of progress. What good are wetlands? What problems do they face? And what can save them? Wetlands are homes to their permanent bird populations, but they also help out traveling birds. More than half of protected migratory birds use wetlands as rest stops while heading north in the spring and south in the fall. A third of this country's endangered plants and animals live in wetlands. Wonder why they're endangered. Maybe it has something to do with the draining. People have been able to create some wetlands for waste management, but nature still makes the best wetlands, so it's important to save the ones we already have. In the 1970s, the governments of Canada and the US saw that the migrating population of waterfowl had dropped from hundreds of millions to a few million. In 1986, Canada and the United States formed the North American Waterfowl Management Plan. Its goal was to protect and restore wetlands along migratory routes. Mexico joined in 1989. In one project, volunteers sowed 23 tons of grass seed in mud flats around Big Lake in Arkansas. The next winter, almost 1 million ducks came to the lake. That was 30 times as many as had shown up the previous year. Florida's Kissimmee River brings water to Lake Okeechobee. It used to twist and turn around 103 miles of wetlands to go just 50 miles south. It also flooded easily. As Florida got more crowded, people wanted flood control and more recreational areas. It was decided in the 1980s to take the kinks out of the river. When the river began to flow in a straight line, wetlands were eliminated. Millions of dollars, and a decade later, it became obvious that channeling was a bad idea. It had severely damaged the environment of all of southern Florida, including the Everglades. The U.S. government and Florida spent millions of dollars to put the kinks back in the Kissimmee. Native Americans used the wetlands without using them up. Micmac and Penobscot Indians, for example, used dried sphagnum moss from bogs for a very delicate job. They made diapers out of it. Wetlands are water management specialists. During the rainy season, they absorb excess water from swollen rivers and streams. This prevents flooding of homes and crops. During dry seasons, they give water back to rivers. Wetlands also have a natural ability to store certain kinds of river pollutants until the environment can absorb them. The Swamp Thing was originally a scary monster, a man who had turned partway into a plant. But by the 1980s, it had become a protector of wetlands. Many of the wetlands that were not drained have been badly polluted. Fertilizers, pesticides, raw sewage, and toxic chemicals run off or are dumped into rivers and streams. From there, they seep into wetlands. Wetlands can filter out some pollution, but too much of it overwhelms their natural capacity to clean the environment.
Now that we've finished reading Kids Discovery, you now have the opportunity to go and read it on your own and read some additional information. At the bottom of your instructions, there's a student registration for Kids Discovery link. Click on that, and it will take you to Kids Discovery student registration. Sign in with Google. If you're already signed in on your computer or tablet, it should take you directly to the sign-in page and log you in as you. As you can see, I've already logged in as Ruby. Once you're in, You join the class. You type in the code B B D B 2 4 and click join, and you will join the class. Once you're here, you go to the third grade classroom, and scroll down where you will find the readings that we just read and some additional readings to get a better understanding about why wetlands are important. Happy reading!